Have you ever experienced a night so terrifying that it carved itself into your mind forever? I remember the exact moment when my world changed. That night, stationed alone in Redwood National Park, surrounded by towering ancient trees and a darkness that wasn't just the absence of light. It wasn't an accident or a coincidence. Something out there was watching me, hunting me. What I faced wasn't just a creature. It was a nightmare bound to the very soul of the forest. This is the story of my scariest night watch, a vigil where the line between reality and nightmare blurred, and a secret long buried in those woods clawed its way to the surface. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share will linger in your mind long after the last shadow fades. I never thought one night on watch would change everything I believed. That night in 2011, deep inside Redwood National Park, the air was sharp with autumn chill, with mist crawling low over the ancient trees. I was stationed at Tower 7, a weathered wooden lookout perched like a forgotten sentinel over the dense forest below. My name is Marcus Webb, and I had been a national park ranger for over a decade. Routine was my comfort, until that night. I remember driving in late afternoon, the sun dipping beneath the towering redwoods, casting long shadows that seemed to swallow the narrow road behind me. The radio crackled with static, no other ranger close enough to pick up. Isolation was normal here, but tonight felt different, as if the forest held its breath. My shift was supposed to be uneventful. Monitor campers, check for fires, report anything unusual. The park director didn't believe in late-night patrols here anymore. Too many scares and odd disappearances in Sector 7 had made the powers that be uneasy. Still, someone had to hold the line. I accepted the post. Alone. Climbing the narrow stairs of the tower, the wooden boards groaned beneath my boots. Up here, the world looked small and distant, but the darkness beyond was endless. I set up the radio, the binoculars, and a thermos of coffee I'd made hours ago. As the night thickened, I felt the silence wrap tighter around the trees. Just past midnight, something shifted. A faint rustle from the tree line caught my attention, far too subtle for a deer or any animal I knew. My eyes swept the darkness, trying to make out shapes. Then, on the dirt path below, prints appeared. No, they didn't belong to any known animal in the park. Long and narrow, almost human, but mismatched with footprints that should have come with them. I grabbed my flashlight and shone it toward the tracks, but they vanished into the brambles. An uneasy feeling gnawed at me. The forest started to sound alive in a way it never had before. Shadows dancing at the edge of vision, twigs snapping like whispers. My heart thumped louder than the nightbirds calling. And then I saw it, a figure, barely visible between the twisted trunks, tall and impossibly thin, moving in unnatural jerks. My breath caught, body frozen like ice. It was watching me. I wasn't sure if it was human or something else, but it didn't belong in the light of this world. I wanted to believe it was my mind playing tricks, or the isolation getting to me. But as the figure disappeared deeper into the woods, I knew one thing. This night wasn't going to end well. The moment that figure vanished behind the trees, I thought my worst fears would stay just shadows in my mind. But the forest had other plans. The uneasy silence shattered with low, guttural sounds that didn't belong to any animal I recognized. It was a deep, rattling breath, almost like a voice trying to speak but failing. The sound bounced off the trunks in eerie echoes, as if something large was moving just beyond my vision. I gripped the wooden railing, trying to steady myself, heart pounding like a drum in my chest. The flashlight flickered in my shaking hand, then died. Darkness swallowed the tower completely for a brief, horrifying second before the backup light kicked in. I cursed under my breath. Technology failing at the worst possible moment was like a cruel joke. With slow, deliberate steps, I climbed down from the tower, every creak of the wooden stairs making me flinch, each shadow expanding into monsters in my mind. I wanted to reach the base quickly, but something held me back. That's when I noticed the diary. It was lying against the foot of the tower's ladder, an old leather notebook with tattered edges and a faint scent of dampness and earth. I hadn't seen it before. How it got there, I had no idea. Flipping through frayed pages, I saw entries written in a hurried, nearly frantic scrawl. The author was the previous ranger, someone named Jack, who had mysteriously disappeared 3 years ago. His last entry sent a chill deeper than any shadow. It spoke of a presence in the woods, no longer just stories, and warned that the thing watched, waited, and hunted. He described sounds like mine, footsteps that didn't match any animal, and a figure that moved like a ghost, one who wouldn't let him leave. A sudden noise made me freeze, the crack of a branch snapping somewhere close. My eyes darted toward the tree line where the moonlight barely penetrated. A flicker of movement caught my eye, a shadow slipping between two towering redwoods. Was I losing it? Was it real? Or was something else watching me, reading the same words, waiting for its moment to strike? I felt trapped between fear and duty. That diary had exposed something dark and hidden beneath the beauty of the forest, something that had kept Jack captive and perhaps doomed. I climbed back up the tower, clutching the diary like a lifeline, knowing deep down that the night ahead wouldn't just test my courage but my sanity. The diary weighed heavy in my hands, its pages soaked with a fear that matched my own. I knew I couldn't ignore what Jack had written. He had sensed the same chilling presence I was facing now. As I leaned against the railing of Tower 7, the forest seemed to lean closer, whispering secrets just beyond my hearing. Minutes stretched into hours. The wind stirred the branches, carrying with it faint and indecipherable murmurs that chilled my bones. I strained my eyes, searching the shadows for that figure, but all I saw were glimpses, quick flickers that vanished before I could focus. Trying to keep my thoughts grounded, I wrote down some notes in the diary, hoping my record wouldn't end as mysteriously as Jack's. The radio sputtered to life with a burst of static, then silence. No calls, no contact. Alone. Truly alone. Visions of the missing campers flashed in my mind. People swallowed by this unforgiving wilderness without a trace. Had they encountered the same entity? Was this thing responsible? The possibility sent a shiver crawling down my spine. Suddenly, from the underbrush, a sudden sharp cracking sound echoed, louder than before. I jumped, heart racing, and swung the flashlight toward the noise. There, barely visible, a figure stood watching from the darkness. But this time, it was closer. Its eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the pale moonlight. Unnatural, haunting. It didn't move like any creature I'd ever seen. The limbs jerked erratically, as if the body was controlled by some unseen force. I tried to speak, but no words escaped my dry throat. It vanished into the trees as abruptly as it appeared, leaving only a lingering cold in its wake. My skin prickled, every instinct screaming to run, but I knew I was trapped here until dawn. Desperation clawed at me. I flipped through Jack's diary again, searching for clues about how to survive this nightmare. Tucked between the pages was a folded map with spots marked, areas where campers had disappeared, all clustered in Sector 7. I realized then that the forest wasn't just haunted, it was alive with a dark secret, and I was caught in its center. The forest seemed to close in tighter, each gust of wind carrying whispers from the past that I couldn't escape. As the night deepened, I sat huddled inside the tower, clutching the map Jack had left behind. My fingers traced the clusters of marked locations, each a fatal mystery. I knew I had to understand what was hunting this forest before it hunted me. I scanned the diary for anything that could explain the creature's origin. Page after page, Jack's entries spiraled into obsession and despair. He mentioned old legends, stories of a guardian spirit, a twisted protector of the woods that punished those who disturbed its domain. But Jack was sure this wasn't a spirit. This was something far darker, something that had once worn a human face, but was no longer bound by humanity. Suddenly, I heard faint voices carried by the wind, voices of people long gone, or so I thought. I stepped outside to the cold night air, flashlight in hand, and the whispers swirled around me. They weren't just voices, they were warnings. That's when I saw it, etched into the bark of an ancient redwood just 50 feet from the tower. Symbols carved deep and weathered with time. The marks pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. I reached out to touch the rough wood, and a shock surged through me. Visions flashing behind my eyelids. Faces twisted in pain, desperate cries, and a shadow looming over them. My breath hitched. This was no ordinary forest. This was a prison, and I was a trapped prisoner. The realization hit me hard. The disappearances, the frantic warnings in the diary, the nightly watcher, they were all connected to a secret buried here for centuries. A secret the park officials had erased from history, buried beneath silence. I had to find answers before the darkness found me. The map and diary had become my fragile link between sanity and the lurking nightmare. As the clock ticked deeper into the night, the forest became more than just a backdrop. It was a predator, circling quietly, waiting to close in. I knew hiding in the tower was temporary. If that thing wanted me, it would have made its move already. But patience was its ally, and mine was dwindling. Determined, I grabbed my flashlight, a pocket knife, and the diary, climbing cautiously down the tower stairs. The ground below was thick with damp leaves and twisted roots. The smell of moss and decay intensified. My every crunch on the leaves echoed too loudly in the stillness. I followed the map's marked trails, heading toward a cluster of points where campers vanished. The deeper I ventured, the colder it became. Not just in temperature, but in the feeling that raw, ancient eyes were piercing through the darkness. Then, out of nowhere, a whisper carried through the trees, a voice that mimicked my own name. Goosebumps erupted as I froze, heart racing. It was close, dangerously close. I spun in every direction, flashlight beams scattering shadows that shifted like living things. Ahead, a pair of eyes reflected the light, not human, not quite animal. Before I could react, the figure darted between the trees too fast, almost bleeding into the bark itself. The forest swallowed it whole. I pushed forward, adrenaline fueling each step, until I stumbled into a clearing. A circle of stones sat at its center, strange symbols etched on them, matching the carvings on the ancient tree by the tower. This was a ritual site. Suddenly, the air turned heavy, oppressive. A whispering chant seemed to rise from the earth itself, a language older than memory. My skin prickled as the realization hit. This creature was no mindless beast. It commanded something primal, something unholy, rooted deep in the forest's soul. I wasn't just being hunted, I was being tested. The deeper I ventured into the secrets of the forest, the clearer it became that this was no ordinary creature or accident. Legends from the local native tribes told of spirits that guarded the redwoods, ancient protectors of the land, bound to punish those who dared to harm their sacred trees. But the whispers also spoke of a darker force, a vengeful guardian twisted by centuries of pain and betrayal. Jack's diary mentioned it too. The Watcher, a being half human, half shadow, with eyes that burned like embers and limbs that moved with unnatural jerks. The disappearances, the strange footprints, the fearful voices, they formed a pattern carved deep in the park's darkest history. I remembered a local story about the Weeping Woman, a ghost who haunted the rivers and lakes, luring the unwary to a watery grave. But the entity haunting me was different. It didn't just haunt the water, it haunted the trees, the land itself. The stone circle I had found was a remnant of a forgotten ritual, a frail attempt to bind the curse long ago. The guardian watched over this circle, judging trespassers. I sat in the tower, clutching the diary and map, heart pounding. Outside, the ancient trees whispered with restless voices. My radio crackled suddenly, an unexpected voice, barely audible, repeating a single word over and over. Leave. Fear threatened to overwhelm me, but I forced myself to listen, to understand. This was more than a warning. It was a plea. My duty was clear. Uncover the truth, or become another lost soul swallowed by the redwoods. The night's terror reached its peak just before dawn. The forest's shadows thickened, the air growing colder as that twisted figure re-emerged from the dark, a monstrous silhouette that had haunted my every step. This guardian wasn't merely watching anymore, it was hunting. I ran through the undergrowth, branches clawing at my face, the creature's guttural growls echoing behind me. The marked trail led me to the edge of an ancient burial ground, where the land seemed to pulse with a dark energy. The faint glow of albino redwoods, known locally as ghost trees, illuminated the clearing eerily. Cornered, I remembered the diary's final entry. The curse could be broken by returning what was stolen, a sacred relic taken by early settlers, now lost to time. Blood pounding, I scanned the forest floor and spotted a fragment of carved wood near one ghostly tree. I grasped it tightly and whispered an apology to the forest, promising respect and peace. The creature hesitated, its glowing eyes softening, then slowly receded into the shadows as the first rays of sunlight pierced the canopy. Exhausted but alive, I returned to the tower, dawn breaking with a fragile calm. The forest was no longer just a place of fear, but a place of solemn respect and ancient power. That night forever changed me, etched in my mind, a reminder that some secrets of the wild demand reverence or exact a chilling cost. Thank you for joining me on this unsettling journey deep into the heart of Redwood National Park. If you felt the chill in the air, the weight of the shadows, and the haunting presence that never left my side that night, please make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any new stories just like this. I'd love to hear from you. Where are you listening from? Did this story send shivers down your spine? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your stories and experiences might just be the next to get shared here. Remember, the forest holds many secrets, and I'll be bringing you more tales of mystery and terror that are sure to keep you on the edge of your seat. Stay with us, and don't stray too far into the darkness.